And here we go. Perfect. So I know you have the slides, but still it would be great if you kind of follow along. What I have prepared is a workshop. Just to give you a quick agenda. I will see how we do with timing, because obviously it depends on how this really works remotely. But I want to give you a quick overview of what I've planned today. Then we do another check on the prerequisites. That should be fairly easy, because I know most of you know how to create a GKE cluster. All of you have said you have a Dynatrace tenant. Jose, I'm not sure if you have a Dynatrace tenant. In case not, go to dynatrace.com and register for a free trial. It only takes a minute or two. Then I will give you an introduction of what problems we actually want to solve with Keptn. Then we walk through the installation, where we are onboarding a very simple microservice that I wrote. Then we're adding quality gates, which is a very key component of Keptn. The application that I have prepared for you actually comes with 4 different builds. So we're running more builds through that Keptn delivery pipeline. Then where we are going to extend the quality gates with additional SLIs and SLOs, and then we'll see how, if time permits, we have some advanced topics for you. So that's kind of the idea. And also, I know I gave you the slides on purpose. Normally people say don't give slides away, because then people get sidetracked. I assume you're all grown-ups. You know best what to do with your time. You can obviously, if you feel bored, go ahead a little bit. Yeah, that's why I think it should not be distracting. Still focus also a little bit on what I'm telling here. So what we have planned today, and I can see, I think there's more people joining now. That's great. I will do another quick shout out to everyone. But what I've planned, so I have an application that I've pre-built for you already. And there's 4 Docker containers on my personal Docker Hub under Grabner Andy, simple node service version 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I've pre-built them for you and pushed them up. I've also prepared a couple of JMeter tests, because once we later on deploy our app, we will have a JMeter test executing load against the different endpoints of the app. I've also created a Helm chart and prepared a Helm chart for you, and SLIs and SLOs. So what metrics are important for us to be enforced in the quality gates, and against which objectives do we want to have them kind of validated. What we will do, so this is what I've prepared, and I have everything in a GitHub repo, which we will later check out so we can use these files. What we will do together, we will install Keptn, our open source project, on GKE. We will onboard my simple node service app for a 2-stage delivery pipeline. We will then, I guess I didn't fix the animation completely. We will then have, actually let me put this out here, because I guess, there we go, perfect. We will also have Keptn to automatically configure monitoring. In our case today, we're using Dynatrace. In case you want to see the whole thing, not with Dynatrace, but with Prometheus, we also have tutorials online. Keptn will then also automate our deployment test, validation, and promotion. I think you can read for yourself. The most important thing is at the end, and this is, I think, the reason why we built Keptn. Keptn does not require any pipeline code. Everything is declared. Keptn doesn't require any hard-coded tool integrations to actually do the deploy, the test, and the validation. It's all event-driven. So once we have everything set up and we are going through my use cases where we deploy my app in version 1, 2, 3, 4, then what Keptn will do, it will do the deployment for us. In staging, we'll run the tests and then promote it into production. What I've highlighted here in the animation, later on, we'll get to a point where we will deploy version number 4. So version number 4 will, for instance, be automatically deployed in staging. It will be tested. Then Keptn enforces the quality gates based on the SLIs and SLOs. If it's good, it will actually promote it forward into production. We're doing canary deployments. If it turns out that production is bad, if the canary is bad, it will roll it back. Also, what we get in the end is a nice overview and feedback from Keptn on what is Keptn doing currently, how are my individual builds that I've passed through, so I can go back in history and see everything. All right, so this is what I've planned today. I just see, let's see, who else has just joined? Adil, I see you just joined. Welcome to the party. I am reposting a couple of things in the Slack, in the Zoom chat for you. What this is an invitation to the Slack channel. So we have a Keptn Slack channel. In general, I think it's great to be part of that channel in case you want to continue working with Keptn and then have access to the development team. We also set up a special channel today in that Slack workspace that's called Stockholm GDG Meetup May 2020. So where you can have side conversations that may not fit into the core part of the conversation here. And I have Johannes and Andreas helping me with these. And then there's also the link to these slides. Okay, people are joining in. Jose, now I see you with the picture. So I assume now it's working. All right. Let's see if this is working. Let's just do a quick check. Jose and Adil, can you hear me? Can you see my screen? I mean, you need to unmute yourself. I cannot hear you right now. And there's more people joining now. Maybe I was wrong in the beginning with the people that are on time in Stockholm. Anyway, I will resume, even though more people are joining. Because now we're coming to the part that I know both those people that have been here earlier today already have, but let's just make sure we have all the prerequisites. So folks, prerequisite wise, a reminder, join the community, join the Slack. So you can find all of the information on the Keptn community on github.com/Keptn/community. This is where you actually see the exact same information that I'm posting here. Get in touch with us via email, but very important, join us on the Slack channel. This link here also is the same registration link that I also posted in the okay, Jose has some connection problems. Adil works. Okay, perfect. So Adil and Jose, if you have connection problems, that's okay. Hopefully you can follow along. We're recording the whole thing, so you can also watch it later on. Make sure you look into the chat window and download the slides. So in case you get lost, everything is in the slides. And we are now in the part where we walk over the prerequisites. So join the community. There's also, I think from a community perspective, and this is also why Johannes and Andreas are here from the Keptn team, the Keptn can grow through its participation or through the community participation. Every Thursday at 5 p.m. Central European time, there is a Keptn community and developer meeting. So where they are now discussing, what's currently going on in development and showing progress. And this is a great way to also give feedback. And if you also would like to contribute, there's different ways of contribution. You can contribute your own sandbox project in Keptn Sandbox where you can extend Keptn, but obviously we're also very happy if you want to contribute to the Keptn Contrib or Keptn Core project, and there's more information that you can find out on the community itself, and the best way to get started is actually join one of these community and developer meetings. Good. All right, let's see if anybody else has joined. There's a couple of people that I think that have joined, but I will just continue. Good, so prerequisites. The first thing we want to do is we want to create a GKE cluster. I really want you to create a new cluster. I want this to be a sandbox workshop tutorial cluster we just used for today. Why do we want to do this? Because yes, we can easily throw it away in case something happens. Also, if we install on a clear cluster, if we don't have any side effects of any other software that you may have pre-installed, and we don't have to work around it. All we need today is highlighted here. So select a version that is greater or equal to 114. I will pick 115.9. That's the one I've run my tests against. Give it the cluster a good name. We only need one node. The node should be Ubuntu, and the machine type is N1 standard 8. So that's what we're using. This is kind of the allows us to not only install Keptn on this cluster, but also deploy some apps later on. And I will do this as well. So let me go to my environment here. And actually, this is the wrong browser window. Where's my browser window? The one that I want. Here we go. So I have my Google Cloud Platform console. And what I will be doing, I'm creating a new cluster. In case you have never done this before, it's really, you know, intuitive, I would say. And also the slides contain all the information. I call this now, what did I call it in the slides? Keptn tutorial. I leave it in this region. As I said, I just used the same version that I've used for testing my tutorial, 115.9 GKE. Now don't click on create yet. There's more things we want to configure. If you click on the node pools, on the default pool, we are changing the node size, the number of nodes to 1. Again, we could go bigger, but it doesn't make sense to waste money because we just want to show you the tutorials and everything end to end. So change the size to 1. Don't check anything else. Everything else is by default. And then if you click on nodes, so under node pools and under nodes, there's 2 things we want to change here. We want to change the image type to Ubuntu. Here we go. And we want to change the machine type from N1 standard 1 to N1 standard 8. This is just, it gives us enough CPU and memory to deploy a couple of apps later on, right? It's not that Keptn needs all this footprint. It's a big machine, yeah. It's not that Keptn needs all this, but it is also that we can deploy apps. And as I said, you can tear this thing down after we're done today. Also, what you can do is we have a special link where you can get $200 extra. I think it's $200 or $300 extra from Google credit if you are signing up. There's it's also in the meetup page. If you follow the links there, you end up at a Google form where you fill out your email address. Be aware, don't use Gmail. It has to be a business email because they're vetting that the emails are correct and not just somebody's email. But then you get an additional credit that you can apply to your account here. All right, let's click on create. And that's it. This will take probably, you know, a couple of minutes. So that's my first step in my prerequisites. So hopefully this, you know, very easy. If you have done this before, this should be really straightforward. If I've not done this before, it should also be not that hard. It's 3 steps. And you have the slides that show you all the screenshots. Right? All right, next thing is once the cluster is up, we can connect to it. Now there's obviously multiple ways to connect to it. I will be using the Cloud Shell, which is really convenient because Google takes care of everything. I don't need to connect from my local machine, but whatever you feel comfortable with. I will later use Cloud Shell. But I will do this, I will come back to this in a minute because creating that cluster will probably take, you know, 2-3 minutes. So I'll just jump to the next prerequisites. And this is something I forgot to do the animation. Oh, thanks Johannes for the voucher link. That's perfect. So Johannes just posted the link to the voucher in the chat window. I will walk you through this, but we need 3 pieces of data in order to let Keptn connect to Dynatrace because we're going to use Dynatrace as a monitoring tool. As I said earlier, if you don't want to use Dynatrace later on, but if you may want to try the whole thing with Prometheus, which is also supported, you can go through the Prometheus tutorials. But for today, we're going to use Dynatrace. And there's 3 things we need. We need the tenant, the Dynatrace tenant. That's the URL to your Dynatrace environment. We need a so-called API token, and we need a so-called pass token. And I always like to use a cheat sheet. So what I would like you to do is just open up a text editor, Notepad, or whatever you have, Visual Studio Code, and let's collect this data. So I will just show you the way I do it. So I will go to my Dynatrace tenant. There we go. So the first thing I need is the URL. So let's do this. I'm using a notepad here, just as I said. and I paste this in here. So it's just the URL without the HTTPS in front. And what do we call it? What do I have in my slides? DT tenant, and I already prepare it for later on. I guess you can tell what this is going to be later on. Okay. The next thing is going to be DT API token. And the last thing we need is DT pass token. Okay, these are the three things that I put in my cheat sheet. Now, let's do this for, like, again, don't copy stuff that you see on my screen. You do it yourself. I know some of you might not be familiar with Dynatrace, so I'll keep this slow and easy. If you are logged into Dynatrace, then you end up on some dashboard. It's probably not the one that you see here because this is something I built, but it should be fairly easy to figure out what's your URL. For SaaS, Dynatrace SaaS customers or SaaS tenants, it's always like an 8-digit, like it's 3-digit, three alphanumerics, 5 numbers, then .live.dynatrace.com. If you're running Dynatrace managed, which means you run it on premise, you have a URL that is longer, and it needs to be a URL to the environment with a /e and then your environment ID. That's what we need. Now, the second thing we need is an API token. So you click on settings, and if you click on settings, and let me just refresh my browser here. There we go. I still have. If you click on settings, then you end up in the settings menu, and if you scroll down, there's a section called integration. And under integration, the first thing we go into is Dynatrace API. This is where you can actually explore all the API options if you're interested in the Swagger UI or read the documentation. But just as with most other tools, what we need in order for an external tool to talk with Dynatrace, we need to generate a so-called token, right? So we click on generate token. I just give it a name. I call it Keptn Workshop Meetup. Can be anything, can be Andy, can be Julio, it can be Carlos. The name itself is not relevant. What is relevant are the things that we have to select here, because Keptn will not only pull data, it also has the capability to configure certain things in Dynatrace. So if you look at the slides, I hope the slides are good enough if you have downloaded them, but the things we need to turn on is the first two, then read configuration, write configuration, and so they don't make a mistake, capture request data, and the real user monitoring JavaScript tag management. So these are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things we turn on. All right, then we click on generate. We've just generated a new token, and then you'll see the entry here in your table. You expand it, and what we really need is that token here, okay? Copy. All right, I'll put it in my cheat sheet, and I will make sure that later on I will delete that token again, because I know this is recorded and not that somebody's messing around with my tenant. So that's the first token. The second token is a so-called pass token. What is a pass token? So the Dynatrace API token is to communicate with Dynatrace, to pull data, to send data, to configure. The pass token is for installing a Dynatrace agent on a particular environment. So what Keptn also automates is if you install Keptn on Kubernetes, on a Kubernetes cluster, it can automatically install the Dynatrace agent on that cluster so that you get full stack visibility. And we also want to leverage that capability that Keptn automatically rolls out Dynatrace for us on that cluster. And for that, we need a so-called pass token. So we generate a token, I again call it Keptn Workshop Pass token. The name doesn't have any meaning because really what we need is now the token itself, copy, and then I put it into my cheat sheet. All right. I hope this is all good. Hope this was easy to follow. So now I will move this a little out of my way because otherwise it's getting a little too crowded here. Perfect. Good. Let's walk back to my Google Cloud platform console. So in my case, I have my Keptn tutorial here. So my Kubernetes cluster is up and running. And what I now want to figure out is I want to connect to it, right? This is also, let's just make sure we can connect to it. If you have never done this before, Again, follow the instructions if you want to connect to it from your local machine. But really, like, you need to then install gcloud locally. But I run it in the Cloud Shell. So if you click on running Cloud Shell, I really like this. I get a Bastion host basically provisioned, and I'm automatically logged in, and it automatically adds the gcloud comment into my console, and I hit enter, and now I have a machine where I have kubectl installed, gcloud is installed, my kubectl is already automatically configured to talk to my Kubernetes cluster, and I have all sorts of other tools installed. And if I go quickly back to my slides, in my prereq slides in the previous one, I think I said, once the cluster is up, let's try this and just log in, and that's it, right? And what we can do, just to validate that everything is good, is we can go into this shell and say kubectl, for instance, get nodes. Then we should be able to see the one node in my default pool with version 115.9. All right. So I want to get a quick feedback through the chat, please. If you can do me a favor, let me know who has reached that point with a quick yes. And if somebody still needs more time, then also let me know just by saying time. Okay, Julia, perfect. Yes, not sure if I have all options on the Dynatrace key. Okay, Roland, the options on the Dynatrace key, they are in the slides, and the thing is you can always change them as well. So let me show you the options again. So if you go back to your Dynatrace API, and you can see here, if you go back, you can always switch them. If you switch them, make sure you also save these changes. And let me just keep this up. It is number 1, number 2, number 6, number 7, number 9, and then whatever that is, 14. So access problems, the first 2, read and write configuration, capture request data, and then the real user monitoring. Julio is asking, in case I have a private cluster, do we require further steps in the configuration? So with private cluster, you mean you have a not a GKE, but you have just some type of Kubernetes cluster on your local environment? Nope. Julio, you can also, if you want to, just turn on the audio quickly. We are a small group. You can just ask the question.
Yeah, sorry. No, I mean a private cluster with each node is has no external public IP.
Well, in our case, we need an external IP, the way my sample works, because we're going to use the external IP to access the API and the bridge. I mean, it has to be an IP that you can access somehow, right? I mean, if we're going to create an ingress, and and as long as you can access that IP, then it's obviously fine.
Okay, never mind. Okay, thank you.
The same is for another cloud provider. Continuing with what Julio says, if I want to use Oki in Oracle Cloud, the step to follow remain the same, right?
Yeah, sure, it should be. Yeah. I mean, again, in the end, we are going to install pods on a Kubernetes cluster, and we're going to expose certain services in these pods through an ingress, so through a virtual service. And we don't do any new magic that hasn't been done before. That's the thing. Okay. Maybe certain things on certain Kubernetes cluster are a little special and different, but in general, it should work. What we are going to install later on with the Keptn full install, it is going to install Istio and that is installed because in the default installation, Keptn also has the capability to apply Helm charts and do blue-green deployments. And right now we're using Istio traffic routing for that. That's why by default, if you install Keptn, we will install Istio. We do have some additional installation options where you can, for instance, repurpose your existing Istio. You can also, there's a new installation option coming up next in the next release where you can repurpose any of your ingresses. So there's stuff coming up. But for this workshop today, I just assume we just take something, you know, a fresh cluster. So we have no problems with any other software that's already installed.
Okay, okay.
Cool, good. So let me quickly go back to my slides. We got the prerequisites, that's all good. So quick introduction, because I want to make sure that we all understand why we're doing this whole thing and why we believe, you know, Keptn actually brings value. So first of all, what is Keptn? I know that you have already done your homework because you looked at what Keptn is. Keptn is an event-based control plane for continuous delivery and automated operations, mainly for cloud-native apps, but actually the way we've done it, Keptn can also not only, let's say, not only deploy cloud-native apps on Kubernetes through, let's say, Helm, we can also use Keptn to trigger a Jenkins pipeline or a GitLabs pipeline or an Azure DevOps pipeline or a Xebia Labs pipeline that is then doing anything anywhere. In the end, it doesn't matter, right? It's an event-based control plane, but the default use case that we see it is for new cloud-native projects where people also want to do delivery, but again, you can bake in whatever you want, whatever tool to do whatever job in whatever way. Good. I think the magic thing is here, and you will see this, the application delivery and operational processes, it's all declarative. It means that you won't see any line of pipeline code in our case. It's all you declare what the process is, and that's true for both delivery and also automated operations for self-healing and auto-remediation. What else do we have? Yes, we are an event-driven system. We are adhering to the cloud events standard. That means it's a standardized communication protocol that we have, which makes it very easy for you to actually extend the product. You can extend Keptn by writing your own so-called Keptn services that can either consume these cloud events that Keptn sends out to do certain things like deploy, test, give me the SLI metrics, promote, or you can also easily integrate with Keptn by sending events to Keptn by triggering workflows. And so these are the things. It's very easy to be done. Also, the reason why we're building Keptn is because when we look at our customers and the people we talk to, we know that a lot of especially large organizations that have a past with, let's say, the traditional way of software delivery, the monolithic architectures, and now want to go to the cloud. A lot of people, you know, are just, you know, they're not cloud native by nature. Some of them just think we can just, you know, wrap an app into a container, deploy it on any of these platforms, and that makes us cloud native, but that's obviously not the case. A monolithic app that was never built for scalability, that was never built to leverage the benefits of an elastic infrastructure that is event-driven, will just not be, by definition, be cloud native and won't be able to reap all the benefits. And now the problem is, not only is this a problem, but we also see that a lot of these organizations have started to adapt continuous delivery, which is great. But over the years, there are continuous delivery pipelines that may have started small to do one thing, let's say build, and then they added deploy to it, and then they added test to it, and then they added notifications to it, and then they added another stage. So these pipelines all of a sudden also became monoliths. So they're basically just a mirror and a reflection of their monolithic source code counterparts. That's basically what it is, right? So as I said, there's a lot of mixed information in there about the process, the target platform. There's a lot of if statements, a lot of hard-coded things in there. The big problem with this is obviously there's no clear separation of concerns because everything is mixed in one single file that should be separated, because different people on different roles within an organization should have different responsibilities, and they should be clearly separated, right? And that's the challenge. So unfortunately, the experience, what we have is that we have pipelines that have a lot of custom built integrations with a lot of tools, and they're also often copied multiple times in organizations. Somebody has a pipeline, you copy it, you paste it, and then it kind of gets this snowflake effect, where what we really want is not this, but we really want to have a seamless integration. We want to have a platform that is easy to use and that easily allows us to change processes, change workflows, replace the tool without having to change all the plumbing in the backend. So what we have set to do with Keptn from a continuous delivery perspective is really removing these hard dependencies. So if you look at, let's say, these monolithic pipelines that we see out there, what they do is actually individual building blocks. And so we wanna remove those, right? We wanna kind of break up these monolithic pipelines and then really focus on the individual pieces of integration. So once we remove them, these building blocks, right, and connect them not through a hard-coded spaghetti code control chain, but through eventing, then we can all of a sudden say, well, we have a clear defined kind of process: build, prepare, deploy, test, notify, rollback. But instead of having everything hard-coded, we use eventing to then actually trigger the individual events through events, and then whoever can pick up that event and execute that action can actually execute that action. So in Keptn, you will see there will be events like a configuration change event, a deploy event, a test finished event, an evaluation done event. There's different events that are sent along the process as an artifact is moving through that process. The process is declarative, and then the events are then there to actually really trigger the right action behind the scenes. Okay. So the most important thing is that we have really separated the process from the tooling here. I hope this still makes sense for everyone. All right. Good. Last words on the Keptn architecture. So what we've done is with Keptn, right, we basically not only came up with that there's a problem and we have a solution from it in theory, but we actually have a real life implementation. So if you install Keptn, and we will do this in a second, on your Kubernetes cluster, what you really get is a control plane that can be controlled through an API. There's also a UI, we call it the bridge, but it's done through the API. And the control plane is using events, well-defined events, to trigger events, to basically execute workflows on artifacts or on problems, for instance. Now, the separation of concern comes in that if you have the control plane, one group in your organization, maybe the DevOps team, who is responsible for actually defining which tools should be used, they can customize Keptn and say, hey, I want to use these particular tools to handle these particular events for these particular types of projects. And in case in a year from now, you are switching from one test provider to another testing tool, or from one deployment tool to another deployment tool, you don't need to change all of your pipelines where this integration is hard-coded. You just change the uniform and say, Keptn, from now on, the deployment event is no longer handled, let's say, by Helm, but it's handled by some other deployment tool that you have. Or we are switching, let's say, from a JMeter testing service to a commercial offering from Neoload and things like that. Okay, so you define the tooling in the so-called uniform. On top, we also have the ability, as I said, to define the application plane, the actual process for delivering operations. Again, this is typically a different group of people. They define the process, like how many stages do you have, what type of deployment strategy, is it direct, is it blue-green, what type of test strategy, do you do just functional testing, do you do performance testing, do you do security testing, do you do no testing at all in a certain stage? This is defined in the Shipyard file. I have a clear separation, the control plane with the tools on the bottom and the process on the top. And now after the developer comes in and says, hey, it's awesome, I now have a platform that allows me to move my artifacts through a well-defined process and the right tools are actually ensuring and executing the process, a developer then can just say, hey, Keptn, here's an artifact, here's a new artifact, do something with it. And then Keptn will take it and basically push it through the delivery process that is defined on application plane, and it's executed by the execution plane on the bottom, by these individual tools. All right. I also added the Keptn architecture diagram. I think this is, hopefully quite up to date. There's, the latest and greatest are always up on GitHub, obviously. But just to see what we actually install when we are installing Keptn later on, we're installing a bunch of different components in the Keptn namespace in Kubernetes. The core components like the API, the event broker, the distributors. We have the bridge, the UIs. That's the UI. We have a MongoDB where we do store results, and also we have a configuration service that is talking to a Git repo that also comes with Keptn, because everything, every configuration element we give Keptn, whether it's an SLI, an SLO, a test script, a Helm chart, is version controlled for us automatically in Keptn. And then the Keptn services, these are the individual tools that are doing things. They're also then part of the uniform being installed in that Keptn namespace. On the bottom, when you use Keptn for delivery and you say, I have an artifact, I have a service, and I want you to deploy it into dev, staging, and then production, then Keptn will also automatically create Kubernetes namespaces to separate these stages. This will happen automatically when you use Keptn for delivery, or let's say the built-in capabilities that Keptn brings through Helm deployments. All right, so last couple of animations. So you see this kind of in action, and then we actually go and install. So remember, rethinking pipelines. If you have written Jenkins pipelines before anything else, they can become really messy. Yes, I mean, Jenkins is a great flexible tool, but in large organizations, it can be become very messy, and it's going to be hard to maintain it and fix problems and find people who actually wrote this piece of code back then. So with Keptn, once you have installed Keptn and you have the individual Keptn services that are listening to different events to do certain things, this is what we'll do later on. So when you start with Keptn, the first thing we do is you say Keptn create project, and we give it a so-called Shipyard file. The Shipyard is, again, remember the application process. So in this case, two-stage pipeline, staging and production. You define a deployment strategy per stage and also a test strategy per stage. And what Keptn does with this, it will automatically create both staging and production, not only Git repos, so internally it keeps a Git repo, so it creates a branch in the Git repo for staging and prod, where it will later then push and store and persist all the stage specific files, like a Helm chart, like your test files, your SLIs and your SLOs. Also, once we start deploying, Keptn will also create namespaces for staging and for prod, so that we have a clear separation here. All right, next step, everything as code. So we've created a project. The next thing is we need to onboard a service. So a project might be your web shop, and then a service could be your cart, your front end, your back end, whatever else you have, your recommendation engine. So when you onboard a service, you basically give Keptn all the different assets that the individual services will need later on. The Helm charts for deployment, maybe your JMeter tests, your SLIs, and your SLOs. They will all be uploaded to Git. That's important. Especially for Helm, for Helm, not only the Helm will be updated, but if you decide to do a blue-green deployment, then we also automatically configure Istio and also create the correct deployments for the blue-green and the deployment definitions. So this will all be done completely automatically for you. You just give it an initial Helm chart for that service, and if you've specified blue-green, it will take care of you for that. All right. Now, how does the delivery then look like? Once we actually have set this up, then we can say, Keptn, I'm a developer, I have a new artifact, and you point it to a container image. Later on, we will use my simple node service. And what will happen is Keptn will send an event internally for the first step, which is, hey, I have this new artifact. So the first thing is we need to actually update our Helm chart with the latest version information. So it will update the values YAML with the right version. The second thing is once this is done, it will send an event for deployment. So if I've specified direct deployment, then the Helm service in my case will pick it up and say, okay, I'm just applying my Helm charts that have already been prepared for me for direct deployments. The next thing is once the deployment is done, it will send a next event that should be targeting tests. So the next thing that will come in is the test tool, in my case, gmeter, will then say, I have a new deployment, Keptn told me about it, here's the URL, and I'm just executing the tests that the user earlier uploaded to the GitHub repo for staging. Pulls the tests, executes them. Once they are done, the next phase becomes evaluation and scoring. This is now where Keptn pulls the data from the monitoring tool that we've configured. It could be Prometheus, it could be Dynatrace. Today we're using Dynatrace, and pulls in all the metrics that we have specified in the uploaded SLI and compares them with the SLOs, with the objectives. It then comes up with a score between 0 and 100. And if you have achieved your own threshold, if you're above that threshold that you can also specify in the SLO, it will then either promote it or decline it. But if it's good, it will promote it. If not, it will keep it there. If it is promoted, the whole process just goes on for the next stage. Update the configuration file, does the blue-green deployment, then tests if tests are available. Maybe in the beginning we don't have tests. This is actually what we do later on. We are uploading tests at the later stage, but still the scoring maybe based on different SLIs and SLOs. And then depending on that, we can also decide, do you want to keep this, yes or no, right? There's also, and I know the team is on here. Right now, we're automatically promoting artifacts from one stage to the next in case you achieve a good grade. But in 0.7, we will introduce also different approval strategies where you can say there has to be a manual approval for a particular type of scoring range, right? So there's a lot of things that are coming in. Good. So I think we are finally ready for the installation. Before we do that, is there, let's see, did anybody else join that I haven't seen earlier? I don't think so. Oh, John has joined. I think I've not seen John. John, I'm not sure if you can hear me, but it seems you're connected. Make sure, and I'm reposting this in the chat window. There is a Slack invite. There's also a link to the Keptn tutorial here, the slides, and also the channel that we've created in that Keptn Slack if you want, or if you have specific questions later on. Good. And John, what we've already done, I'm not sure when you joined, but we have already done the prerequisites. So we already have a GKE cluster and the Dynatrace tenant for all of us. Okay, so highlight again, or high level, what are we going to do from now on? Remember, what you need in order to install Keptn is a Kubernetes cluster, or I also added the Ubuntu Linux option because we also have a very cool script that can just install micro Kubernetes with Keptn and with everything else you need on an Ubuntu. The project is called Keptn in a Box on the Keptn Sandbox project. So this is what we need. We need a place to install Keptn. And for our purpose today, because we're using Dynatrace, we need the Dynatrace tenant, the API, and the pass token which we've created earlier. If you want to do the whole tutorial using Prometheus instead of Dynatrace, you can also do this. Just go to tutorials.dynatrace.com, tutorials.keptn.com, and then you will find the Prometheus specific tutorials. So these are the prerequisites. Now, in high level, what we're going to do, we're going to install Keptn, which will install a lot of cool things in your Kubernetes cluster. Then we are going to create a secret where we store the Dynatrace credentials so that later on the integration between Keptn and Dynatrace can actually talk with each other, these two tools. In order, so the actual tools that will do it, or the actual services, there's two services. There's the Dynatrace service and the Dynatrace SLI service. So one is there to make configuration change events, or they're making configuration changes and pushing events. The SLI service is there to pull data. Then we also say Keptn. Oh yeah, thank you. Tutorials.keptn.sh, exactly. Thanks for posting that in the chat. Then we'll do a Keptn configure monitoring. We need to, after installing these tools, there's an option where we can actually say, hey, Dynatrace, configure yourself, right? You're installed now. Now go out and install whatever else you need. That's what we need to do. And once that is done, we can actually set up our project. Remember, I have a sample app. So we will create a project. We will create a service. And then we do, again, configure monitoring for that particular project so that we really make sure that for this Keptn project, we're using Dynatrace because you can actually have different monitoring tools being used for different projects. And we add all the additional resources like SLIs, SLOs, and let's, for instance, say the JMeter script to it. And then we can go off and say, Keptn, deploy my stuff. Good. So now let's get our hands dirty. Let's go back to the first step is I want to go back to my cloud platform. Here we go. Hopefully this is not too small for you, but you should have it anyway in your screen. So what all I'm doing now, and this is the way I structured the slides. Everything that is in, everything I'm going into this mode now. All these can be copied and pasted, right? Don't copy the $sign. I guess I should have not, when I ran through this in preparation, I copied the $sign so often. And then obviously the bash shell tells you what's the $sign all about. But I just, you know, essentially we can go step by step. The first one was just to validate kubectl get nodes. We did this earlier, so we are connected. If you're doing this not from your console, but maybe from your own workstation, from your own terminal, just make sure you're connected to exactly that Kubernetes cluster. The next thing is this curl comment. Perfect. This curl comment is downloading the Keptn CLI and it's actually installing it. So with this, you know, we're downloading the latest version. And in order to validate, we can also do Keptn version now. And it should say CLI version 0.6.1. So it downloads it, installs it. It's just a CLI, the command line interface. Now the fun part, we install it. So Keptn install platform GKE. And I enter now, and then basically it asks you, so if you do GKE, it basically looks at the it looks at your G-Cloud information, basically, you know, which cluster you're connected to and so on and so forth. And this is why it gives you the defaults. And I have to double check that this is really my name, Keptn Tutorial, yeah, because it also uses some cached values and earlier I used a different name. So this is my cluster, this is my zone, this is my GKE project. Everything is good. Do you want to really install it? Yes. So now I'm installing Keptn. This will run about 5 minutes. I'm sure you have already guessed, Keptn install platform, you can add different platforms for GKE, AKS, EKS, OpenShift. You can also say platform equals Kubernetes. What Kubernetes means, it just gets the current kube config, kubectl config, and installs it to that Kubernetes cluster. If you do GKE, it uses the connection information from G-Cloud and so on and so on. So this will run, what did I say in the slides? About 5 minutes, right? And we'll now install everything that I've highlighted. Where is it installed? Does it generate some kind of home Keptn folder? No, what it does, that's a good question. It actually, the CLI is downloading an installer pod and basically deploys that installer pod in your Kubernetes cluster, and then Keptn itself is installing itself within Kubernetes. Okay, so really what happens now, if you look at this slide here, from the outside I say Keptn install, the CLI connects to your Kubernetes cluster, deploys the installer. We have a little installer pod, and that installer pod is then deploying everything from within the cluster. And Andreas and Johannes, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is the way it works.
That's completely right. And additionally, of course, we are creating a home folder. So as Junior suggested.
Mm-hmm. So they mean you're right, the Keptn config, because it will not only install it, right? It will, you can see here what's doing. It's installing Istio, it's installing Keptn, Tilla. Also some good news, and this is actually work that Andreas, I think you did. We are moving from Helm 2 to Helm 3 soon. Right?
Yeah.
Very cool. But this current version still has Helm, using Helm 2. That's why we have Tilla and everything else there. Perfect. So after it's installing it, it is also, and Julio, I think that's exactly what you were meaning, right? It will store the configuration about how to communicate with the Keptn API later on. How can the CLI communicate exactly with that Keptn installation? That will be stored in a Keptn folder in the home directory. All right.
In case you're using macOS, we're using the keychain, which comes with macOS. So nobody can then access the API token by just opening a file. And this is also the reason why you have to enter your password when you're installing Keptn.
Cool. So for me now, exactly, that's what you just said, right? So we stored the password and the token and the endpoint in the home directory. But essentially, I mean, I'm done now. What I can do is I can do a Keptn status, and what it actually, yeah. So one thing, I do hope this is just an xzip.io issue. Let's try this again. So as you can see here, the API or the endpoint is api.keptn, and we're using xzip.io as a DNS resolver to actually resolve API and the bridge and so on later on. This has worked all the time today, but I know that sometimes we have issues with xzip.io. Yeah, DNS probe finished. So we're using this service. This is only good for demo purposes. I mean, for demo environments, xzip.io. There's also nip.io and some others, and we're actually currently thinking of providing a better option.
Now it looks good. If you append Swagger -UI.
Yeah, you're right. Let's try this again, because now it's connection reviews now. Swagger-UI. Thank you so much. Almost. This xzip.io. Swagger. Let's see. Let's try this again here. Maybe one of you can let me know if you can, those that followed. So you should be able to open up your browser, go to api.keptn and then your IP address and then /swagger UI. This should be getting you to the API endpoint. In my case, it says connection refused though now, right? It could actually resolve it.
And can you show us the Keptn pods?
Sure, kubectl get pods.
Andreas, what do you think about restarting the gateway? You know, the Florian was pointing to this problem today.
Yeah, let's restart the API, please.
Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure if anybody else has the same issue.
No, the first.
The first, or the API, not the gateway. Let's try this. And this is an issue with Xip.io, right? Because I guess they are resolving the name, and then if the DNS doesn't work, again, we're using Xip.io for demo purposes, so that we don't have to register, DNS entries and so on and so forth for all of our.
So I can now access your Swagger UI.
Yes. So you copied my IP address? Is that what you're saying?
Sorry.
There we go. And now my Keptn status works as well. So in case anybody else run into the problem, that's a good practice run or good troubleshooting. So what happens is internally, obviously, Keptn resolves the same IP using Xip.io in case you don't specify your own custom domain. So there is an option to specify your own custom domain, but for demo purposes and workshops, we always use that. And in case that fails, we just restart the API endpoint. Good. Let's see what else we have. It's installed. What else do I have in here? Keptn status. That's what I had. Oh yeah, and in the slides, as you can see here, I actually pointed, go to the Swagger UI, and I also explained what are the individual. I'm slow, but sure. Yeah. Carlos, where are you? How far behind are you? Has Keptn installed? Because you said you. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm doing right now, but I'm okay.
Perfect. I will take, we'll take a break in a minute or two anyway, so you can also catch up in case it's still running. Just a little explainer again. The way this works, right? We're using Xip.io, and as you saw, in case there are problems, you need to refresh until Xip.io. Xip.io sometimes they have outages. It's a free service. The way it works though is you have your front is api.keptn, so your service.namespace. We install everything in the Keptn namespace. Then it's the IP address, your public IP address of your ingress, and then .xip.io. And then in order to access the Swagger UI, you need to just add /Swagger UI. So if I go back to my console here where I did Keptn status, and it could finally successfully authenticate, I get the URL to the API endpoint, and that's the one I can obviously use if I want to make direct calls to the API using a Postman or some other tool. But if I want to, we don't have a certificate here. But if you want to access the Swagger UI that allows you to explore the API, then just add /Swagger-UI. And then it should load in a second. There we go. Perfect. All right. So this is just a regular Swagger UI where you can play around and then test things out. Good. Also, if you want to know, you obviously need a token in order to call the API. We can get the token. There's a great piece of documentation on Keptn SH. If you go to docs, and if you go to the releases and the references under Keptn CLI, there's a great documentation here on how you install the CLI, and actually, sorry, the API, the CLI, and then we also have the API. And in order to use the API, we need the token. And in order to get the token, just check this one out. Here we go. For Linux, it's just these two comments, right? It's basically the endpoint is stored in a config map, and the API token is stored in a secret, so you can easily get it. Jose, I was successfully authenticated. That's awesome. So I just want to show you this though, right? If you wanna, if we execute these two, and then do echo Keptn endpoint. Then we have that, and then if we do a Keptn API token, then this is my token. And so I could also directly, use any type of tool that can send HTTP requests to that endpoint and using that token, and work with Keptn like this. Or I use the CLI. Can you paste that doc page where you took those variables from? Sure. It's here. Exactly. And maybe you know what I will do? I will make a note to some additional slides appendix here. So let me just add a slide here, additional information, working with the Keptn API, get your endpoint and token, and then call it via Swagger or your tool of choice. And then there's also documentation here on the API. Perfect. Good. All right. So let's see where we are. We're here. All right. So if we're all authenticated, if you can all go to the Swagger UI, now the next thing I want you to do, I've prepared some examples. As I said, right, I have my sample app, and there's a Keptn repo that's called examples. It has some other examples too, but we're focusing on one. Still, I want to go into my console. I do a git clone. So let's just clone that github.com/Keptn/examples. It comes with a couple of examples, as I mentioned. The one that we are interested in is the one that's called Simple Node Service. So you can look into this. This is where I prepared all the files we will later need. And it also explains a little bit about the app itself, that I've based it on an AWS tutorial, and that I've extended the feature set a little bit. And I also have 4 builds, as I said, and every build has a slightly different behavior. Some are good, some are not that good, and we will leverage this application later on. So first thing though is we want to clone that repo. What's the next thing? The next thing is, thank you for posting that. The next thing is in that once we have it extracted, we go into the examples, sample node service Keptn folder. All right. So cd examples, simple node Keptn. And in that folder, I've prepared a script that is called expose bridge. Because so far, the only thing we have seen from Keptn is only the API endpoint, but not the beautiful bridge. And in the next version of Keptn, in 0.7, or is it 0.62 already? Where do we get the exposed bridge? 6.2. So in the next version, which will be released next week, I believe, we will get this as a built-in Keptn CLI feature. In this version, I just provided an SH shell script. So what this is doing, it is creating a virtual service for the bridge, so that we can also access the bridge through your browser, because the bridge is really where we see what's actually happening. So if you open it up, then we get the beautiful DNS error probe message from Xip.io. And once we refresh a couple of times and then pass the security warning, then we get to the bridge. Obviously no projects yet, but we're getting there. But that's the idea now. If I go to the slides, exactly. Cool. All right. So quick check, who has the bridge? Who sees the bridge? Who is there? You can either use it audio or just post it in the chat window. I guess nobody's there yet. I'm here. Perfect, Roland. Awesome. That's great. Perfect. All right. So then I have one more slide I want to walk you through, and then I also need a quick bio break, and then I give you time to catch up. We working Yup, that's awesome. Cool. So remember the little cheat sheet that we created earlier. If you look at where's my cheat sheet? This is my cheat sheet for the Dynatrace credentials. So DT_tenant, your tenant. This is very important. No HTTP in front, no slash in the end. Then DT_API token, the token that we created earlier. DT_pass token, and then your pass token. Right? If you take these and we put it over in my console, that's good. Now the reason why we need this, because we need to install the Dynatrace integration, and in order for the two Dynatrace services we have, the Dynatrace service and later on the SLI service, to actually talk with Dynatrace, it needs to have access to these credentials, and we store it in a secret. So the first part up here, the first kubectl Keptn create secret, copy it, we'll paste it in, boom. Dynatrace secret created. So this creates a secret called Dynatrace in the Keptn namespace. That's the first thing. Second thing is we actually want to install the Dynatrace service itself. So the Dynatrace service is listening later on to different events in Keptn, a deployment event, a test finished event, an evaluation done, and it will send this information to Dynatrace. So Dynatrace knows, this is when a deployment happened. It was this version. It happened by Keptn. This is when the test started. This is when the test stopped. This is the evaluation result of the quality gate. So this service will make sure that all these events are sent over. And so let's install it. kubectl apply. This is actually a newer version that thanks to Christian, who is not on the call today, but he helped me get some of the changes in. So this is a special release 0.6.9 build. So now the service is installed, and the last thing we want to do is we want to do Keptn configure monitoring. What this does, it sends an event to the Dynatrace service we just installed and says, hey, please configure yourself on this Keptn installation. And what the Dynatrace service will do, it will install the Dynatrace One agent. It will, as you can see here, it will create a couple of tagging rules. This is for the load testing integration we provide. It will create some dashboards and alerting profiles. So it automates the configuration of Dynatrace for this particular Kubernetes cluster for you. What it does is also documented, and you can obviously look into Dynatrace installation later on to validate what we did. But this is now kind of enabling Dynatrace for that cluster. Cool. All right. So let's do it that way. Let's make a quick 3-minute break. I just need to refill my water and go to the bathroom. I'll be back. Let's continue in 5 minutes. If you kind of fell behind a little bit, use this time to walk through the next steps until slide 27, and we will resume in 5 minutes. I hope this is okay for everyone. Perfect. Gracias. All right. So I'm just trying to figure out, John, whoever, I saw you, I think you joined a little later. Can you tell me if you can hear us all right and if you could follow along? Either speak up or use the chat window. I'm not sure if I saw any of your messages. Just want to make sure you're there and you could kind of follow along. Well, maybe you're not there anymore and something better was available on stream on Netflix. Who knows? Good. I hope everyone is back. I think I said 5 minutes. I believe it is 5 minutes now. I want to continue. So Julio, Carlos, Roland, you're all there? What time is it here? It is 7:23 p.m. So it's in the evening, 7:30. I think you should see it in my screen share, right on the bottom right. Ah, yeah. Yeah, it's a little easier in South America, right? 6 hours behind. But we have a good pace, so I think we will be through this in about an hour, which means I may even get another, get some daylight at the end of the day here. All right. So Jose, you are back, obviously. Julio, I hope you are back, and Roland. Who else is there? Jitendra, you are hopefully all here. Perfect, Jose. Good. So then let's continue. Next thing we do, we are creating a project and we are onboarding a service. So just as we did earlier, I have prepared this Keptn create project, simple node project, and then either -- shipyard equals the shipyard file that I've prepared for you, or just -s for short. I kept the short version because otherwise it would not have fit on the screen. So let's do Keptn create project. And what it says, hey, I just created a project and it has a staging stage and a production stage. That's it, staging and production. Right? If you look at the shipyard file, it's exactly, if we go into the Keptn's folder, and if you look at the shipyard file, this is exactly what I specified. I want to have a stage with direct deployment and a performance test strategy. And then in production, I want to do blue-green. I want to do, again, performance tests. So we're doing a blue-green deployment. Then we run some performance tests. And then we also figure out if once the performance tests are done and then the evaluation kicks in, whether we want to keep blue or green or whether we want to switch back. Also have here the remediation strategy. So this is something for the remediation workflow. We're not going to go into detail today on that, but there's also tutorials on auto-remediation. And there's also more coming in the next couple of Keptn versions. So, but this is important. Staging and prod, direct blue-green performance and performance testing. Good. So we created a project and now we need to onboard services. We're using Onboard service. There's also a Keptn create service. Onboard means you're onboarding a service where you also want Keptn to handle delivery, where you actually onboard a Helm chart. Create service would be you're just creating the structure in Keptn. Okay, there's a question coming in, Jose. So you have a problem with creating the Dynatrace secret. Let's just make sure that, let me just go back. You just need to make sure that these environment variables, DT tenant, DT API token, and DT pass token are exactly called like that. Let me bring up my little cheat sheet again. So make sure that they're all uppercase, that you have the underscore here, that you've exported them first, right? This is your cheat sheet. I copied that over. Or the other option that you have, you can just replace them. But this is just the way I did it. Also, I'm gonna check, yeah. So this could be the only thing that for me would explain the problem if something is malformed. Okay. As I will be deleting the tokens anyway, I will just reply, send them over to you. So don't use mine, okay? But this is the way it should be. Don't use mine. Don't. Let me know if this worked, Jose. Don't worry. Okay. Good. I can follow on. Perfect. So created a project, onboarding the service. So what did I say? There's two options: onboarding, where you can add a chart, and then we'll do all the magic we support we're using Helm, and we create the different Helm deployments. If you do blue-green in a stage, create service would be another option. This is typically used if you're using Keptn only, let's say for the quality gate use case, where you don't really need delivery, or maybe where you want to use different tools for delivery, right? You can also say create service. It creates all the structure in the Git repo. In my case, we're using the full-blown Keptn, including delivery. So I'm copying this in. And that's it. It tells me created Helm umbrella charts. And that's it. So now Keptn has all the information about my service. So what's the next step? Slide number 29, it says, let's do our first deployment. Well, then let's do it. So how do we do at first deployment? We tell Keptn, I have a new artifact for you, right? I might be a developer for this project, for this service. Here is my image and here's my tag. And I'm pasting this in. Now, the first time, this will take a little longer. Why? Because, and Andreas and Johannes, again, maybe you can fill in the blanks here. But I think for the first time, we actually do all the Helm magic, and then also namespaces have to be created, and there's more things going on the first time.
Yeah, correct. We're creating the namespaces, and also we are generating so-called Helm umbrella chart, which is used by Keptn internally. And this is not, or it's a duplicate of the Helm chart that is onboarded, but used for doing the blue-green routing. And this takes some while. Perfect.
So, however, while we're waiting here, what we should be able to see, if we go back to our Keptn's bridge, right? If you have your bridge still open, bridge.keptn something, and you click on the retry button, because earlier it says you don't have projects. Well, now we do have a project. We have a project that's called Simple Node Project that has two stages, staging and prod, and we already see our first service. And under the service, if you open that up, you also see that we call it the root event that is triggering a workflow in Keptn. In this case, it's a configuration change event. So when I actually said Keptn have a new artifact, what the Keptn CLI is actually sending in to Keptn is, hey, here's a configuration change. There's a new tag, a new image. And then it starts off. And now the cool thing is, you can see here, my bridge has just refreshed itself and my workflow already continued. And on the right side, so if I click on the left side on a root event, on the right side, I see the complete chain of events. What is happening in that workflow? Remember, we always have deploy, test, evaluate. And in our case, we said we have a staging environment and a production environment. So the first thing is staging. We had a deployment finished. So the Helm service, when it was triggered by Keptn, because it is listening to the configuration change event, it then deployed. And when the Helm service was done, it was sending back to Keptn, hey, I'm done. We also have the link here. So this little thing here, if you click on it, it will open up a new browser. And voila, we have our app deployed. Congratulations, build number 1 is in staging. And again, if this doesn't show up immediately because you have a DNS error, hit refresh a couple of times. This could again be the xip.io issue. Right? Now, what's also great, and I like this in the current version of the bridge, you can always expand these tiles, and they show you the actual underlying events that Keptn is sending. We will make this, let's say, we will hide most of this, not hide, but there's a lot of new iterations of the bridge coming out soon, where we will not make this as prominent. So we want to give you more information and more answers to your questions, like what is deployed and where is it deployed. But right now, this is really cool. And I think also, on Johannes, in the future, there will be a way to also see the underlying events, because for me, this was really valuable to see what has actually been sent back and forth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can confirm.
Cool. So then it says test finished, even though 0 tests, 0 minutes, because we haven't uploaded tests yet. So it just bypassed that stage. Also, evaluation done. It says the evaluation is done, even though there was no real evaluation because we haven't yet uploaded SLIs and SLOs, which is why my workflow by default goes all the way through, and it's, as you can see here, the so-called gatekeeper service has automatically promoted it into prod. Now the question here would be, should you really promote something in production if you haven't done if you haven't specified your test files or haven't specified your SLIs and SLOs? Kind of like a test-driven development mentality, where you can only pass the test if you actually wrote the tests and they're successful. But by default now, right, we just, if there's no tests, it just skips that, and so on and so forth. And now it's actually went it all the way into production. Again, I have a link here. I can open it up, and this is now my prod environment, right? And you can see, congratulations, build number 1. And my app is also highlighting the Keptn stage name, right? In this case, it's staging, and this is production. Right? That's the difference between these two. Very cool. So first deployment, good. Quick show of hands or quick comments, please, in the Slack channel. You cannot copy slides from the slides. Is anyone facing the same issue? I see them online, but view only. Maybe this limits the option to copy paste text from. Julio, you should be able to download the slides locally. Right? If you open up that link, you should be able to say download local copy. Only download as PDF, okay? You should be able, yeah, you can download them. Yeah. Okay, so Roland, you have to export it to a PDF. That's a good, thanks for sharing this information that late, an hour later. Come on, folks. But I guess you thought that everybody came up with the same idea. So thanks for sharing this. We'll probably upload the slides somewhere else later on, probably to some of the Git repos. Also, we're converting this into a regular tutorial. So under tutorials.keptn.sh, you will find this as well. And then it's all HTML, and then it should be easier. Good. All right, so this was run our first deployment. And as you can see here, what I highlighted is exactly what we just did, navigating through the bridge and then opening up these links. Now, another thing I want to quickly validate is if our monitoring is working as expected. So if we go to Dynatrace now, let me just go to Dynatrace. If you click on hosts, you should see your Kubernetes host. In my case, it's GKE Keptn Tutorial Default Pool. Right? So why do we see this host in Dynatrace? Because when we were earlier installing the Dynatrace service on Keptn, and then we said Keptn configure monitoring Dynatrace, this CLI comment was sending an internal event saying, please configure monitoring for Dynatrace. The Dynatrace service picked it up, was reading the Dynatrace secrets, and the first thing it does, it validates on that Kubernetes cluster, is Dynatrace already installed, meaning the one agent? If not, it is installed in the Dynatrace one agent operator to roll out Dynatrace on that cluster. This is why we have full stack visibility here. As you can see, this is the host. We also have the Google Cloud tags here and all the different metadata. We see all the processes and containers. Now, what I always like is to look at Smartscape. So under the ... you can click on Smartscape View. And what's great here is we should see the complete stack from the bottom up, from the data center to the host, through all the different processes, which are basically pods and containers. The 3 services here, and also on the very top is an application. So we actually see end user data. Why do we see end user data already? Because when I opened up my browser window and navigated to that app, it's an app that is running on a Kubernetes cluster that is monitored by Dynatrace, and by default, we are turning real user monitoring on. That means everything I click here, everything I do is also recorded from an end user perspective, which means we can actually see clicks and swipes and user navigation. And if I go back to Dynatrace, right, this is really cool. Oops, not this one. This is the right one. I can go into, you may not have the same nice names. I have a naming rule. I will show you later on how that works. But pick one of those 3 Node.js's and then click on the little arrow here. So you actually get to the node service that we're monitoring. And what's great here is you see there's tags: Keptn deployment, Keptn project, Keptn service, Keptn stage. So the Helm chart that I've provided for my example is automatically passing the deployment type, the project, the service, and the stage to that Node.js process. And when we have set up the Dynatrace integration with Keptn, that integration automatically created some tagging rules so that it extracts that metadata out of that container and converts it into tags, which is pretty sweet. Because one thing we can also do, if we don't know which service it is that we're interested in, we can go to transactions and services. So you can also get to here in the menu on the left, there is one entry that is called transactions and services. And now what I can say, if we click on the filter by, you can say, I only want to see those with the tag, let's say, Keptn project equals to simple node project. And then you can say, I want to additionally tag it by Keptn staging. So now you have your filters. So that's great. Right? So for those of you that are familiar with Dynatrace, and I'm sure other monitoring tools have it similarly, you can use tagging for filtering. Now, what also happened is if you remove the filter again, and in Dynatrace you look up here next to where it says buy now, there's a little filter icon. If you click on that, there's also a long list in my case now because I've created so many different scenarios. But what Keptn also does, and the Dynatrace integration, it automatically creates a so-called management zone for all of my different Keptn projects and stages. So in my case, there is for instance, one is called Keptn Simple Node Project Staging. So this should actually give me the same result, but now it's on a global level. So I have this management zone, and I automatically only get to see those services that have the right tags on it. Okay, very cool. Does this make sense still? Is everybody, Roland, Jitendra, Jose, Julio, Agrim, are you all there with me? Perfect. Good. Perfect. And Jose, have you figured out and solved your secret problem? Your Dynatrace secret? I am fighting. You're fighting from literal flag. I think it's my console. I think I know what it is. The dash is actually not a dash. It's so it's not dash dash. I think you copied it wrong. So this is something that happened to me as well. So you are struggling with this here. Right? It should be 2 dashes, but I think the way you copied it is only a single long dash. Okay. So that's important. If you copy things over, then make sure that these are 2 dashes and not kind of converted into 1. Roland, you said you have no metrics in Dynatrace. You don't see anything in Dynatrace, meaning if you click on hosts, you don't see it. You don't see anything here either. If that's the case, then I could create secrets, but couldn't configure monitor Dynatrace. Okay. Let's go back to this, right? You need to create a secret. Again, make sure that you have, if I go to my example again, where is my, here we go, right? Make sure that these secrets, this is very important. This is just the URL, no slash in the end. The write token and the pass token. Hopefully you haven't mixed the 2 up. So you create a secret. The next thing is you install the Dynatrace service, and then it's a Keptn configure monitoring Dynatrace. And this will actually then install the one agent on that cluster and should do all the magic. Okay, Roland, you said not just the project. So you mean yeah, but no host. That's, Roland, do me a favor, just do another, can you just do Keptn configure monitoring Dynatrace again? Yeah, perfect. All right, so let's go through the rest, and then we can also do some specific troubleshooting in a little later. We have this, we have hopefully monitoring in place. Okay, next thing is slide number 34. We want to also install the so-called Dynatrace SLI service. That's the component that allows Keptn to retrieve values from Dynatrace. We also have a Prometheus SLI service. We have a Neoload SLI service. So whatever data source you have, you will probably end up with an SLI service that can then deliver the data when Keptn needs it. So in my case, just as before, we go over and up. I guess I need to log into my Sure. So I go back to my Google console. I'm applying that YAML file. And now I'm unauthorized. Why is this? Unable to recognize. Oh, that's interesting. That's good as a let's try this again. Interesting. I've never had that before, so I guess there was a short glitch with GitHub. So I just installed the Dynatrace SLI service. Next thing is I'm enabling Dynatrace SLI support for my project. Remember, the reason why we do this is because you can have multiple projects in Keptn later on. And maybe some of these projects don't need SLIs at all. Some of them may use Prometheus and maybe some other tools. Right now, we have also the limit of having one SLI provider per project. Future versions of Keptn will be able to have multiple SLI providers per project. Right now, it's a single SLI provider. It's also one of the reasons why this particular comment here, Keptn configure monitor Dynatrace -- project, simple node project, will first of all, again, make sure that Dynatrace is properly set up, and it will also enable SLI support for that project, which means it actually stores a little config map so that later on Keptn knows to which tool to reach out to when it needs to query data. All right. Now, adding quality gates, that's the fun part, at least for me. The way quality gates work, remember we have SLI files and we have SLO files. So in one file, we specify what metrics are important, and the other file, we specify what are the objectives. The one file is tool specific. So we have an SLI file that is specific, let's say, for Dynatrace. This is also the reason. So what I'm doing now when I copy this, let's just copy this one. It says Keptn add resource to this project for a particular stage. For this service, I'm adding an SLI YAML. And what I've prepared in my sample, I actually have two SLIs. One is called SLI Basic, the other one is called SLI Perf Test. We're using the basic version right now. That's why the resource field here says Dynatrace / SLI Basic YAML. We are uploading in it to the Keptn repo under Dynatrace / SLI YAML. So it always has to be SLI YAML when we upload it to Keptn. But in this case, we're using the basic version. The basic only has 5 metrics in there, and later on we go to a different one. If you do this correctly, right, you should always see at the end resource has been uploaded, which means that's a good sign that, hey, you were able to upload that resource to the Keptn Git repo, and we do the same thing for the SLO. We'll do this for the SLO. Perfect. So now we've uploaded a list of metrics and what objectives we have. We look into this in a little later while we execute the next build and run some tests, because then we have a couple of minutes. So in order to actually leverage these quality gates, not only should we define SLIs and SLOs, but we also, after deployment, need to run some tests so that then we can evaluate that time frame of the test against my SLIs and SLOs. So this is why the last step we have to do here, two actually. First, I wrote a little extension to the default JMeter service, which provides additional capabilities. So I want you to actually use this one versus the one that comes with the default installation. So what we're doing here, we're just switching to a different image. So instead of the JMeter service, we're using the JMeter extended service. So if you copy this over, kubectl, Keptn set image, we're just using a different JMeter service from now on. And then the way testing works, there's two things we upload. The first one is the testing script itself. In my case, I have prepared a JMeter script called load.jmx. That's the file. So we upload that. And the second thing we do is, and this is where the extension comes in of the stuff that I built, it's a so-called jmeter.conf.yaml. This allows us to actually parameterize the JMeter script, so we can actually define different workloads. So how many users should be executed, how many iterations, how long should the test run? And so I've prepared a couple of different workload configurations. So I'm uploading this to Keptn, which means I have a JMeter test uploaded, the workload definition. And what's really cool with this particular test, so the way I'm also using a specific Dynatrace integration. So when you execute load tests, whether it's JMeter or any other tool, you can have the load testing tool also add a specific HTTP header to every request, so that Dynatrace actually knows when it captures the transactions and does the end-to-end tracing. It actually knows this request came in from the homepage test step. This one came in from invoke. This one came in from echo. This one came in from this step. So later on in Dynatrace, we'll actually see that we can do diagnostics and split all the requests up by test step name. So that's also what I've done with this test. Okay, so we've uploaded the tests, we've uploaded the SLIs and the SLOs, and now what we want to do is we want to just run the same deployment again. We actually deploy build number 1 again, even though that I know it's boring, but we'll do it again. But I want to see the difference, because now quality gates should be enforced, meaning tests should be executed and SLIs and SLOs will be enforced after the tests are done. So we'll do another, hey Keptn, here's a new event, here's a new artifact, and now the whole chain goes on. And this runs about 2 to 3 minutes. I have decided to use short tests right now. While these 2 or 3 minutes, let's have a look a little bit at these things we just uploaded. So if you remember this Keptn examples Git repo, where the simple node service subfolder exists. This is where under the Keptn subfolder, I've prepared all the files, the charts, the JMeter scripts. But let's have a look at the SLIs. SLIs are tool specific, so under the Dynatrace folder, you can see here an SLI basic YAML file. So this is the SLI file we gave Keptn. Right? So when we uploaded it, we said, hey, Keptn, this is SLI basic on my local directory, local drive, and you upload it in your repo under Dynatrace SLI.yaml. This is just 5 metrics. And I've chosen these 5 metrics because these are out of the box, so-called built-in metrics that Dynatrace provides. So what Keptn later will do, once the tests are executed, it will go to the Dynatrace SLI server service and say, hey, please pull in all of these metrics. And it does it by calling the metrics API. Every entry here, right, an SLI is specified with a logical name and then with a query. And the way the queries work, it's a metric selector. So what type of metric am I interested in which particular type of aggregation? Important here is we always expect a single value to come back from an evaluation time frame. So that's why you need to work with merge and sums and so on. And then there is the entity selector. So from which particular monitored entity in Dynatrace do I want to have it? And remember, we have all the tags on it. So really what we want is if I go back to transactions and services, and if I go back to my tags, my Keptn project sample node project tag, let's say staging, then I want the metrics exactly from this service, and I can uniquely identify it through these tags: stage, deployment, project, and service. And this is why my SLI here has exactly these tags specified in the entity selector. So please give me that metric up front for the entity that has the Keptn project tag on it, the stage tag, the service tag, and the deployment. And these placeholders will automatically be replaced as part of that process for the project, the stage, the service, and the deployment type that Keptn is currently kind of pushing my artifact through. And at the end, because this is also cool, you can not only query metrics from a service level, you can also query metrics from process level, from host level, from end user level. So this is where you say from which type of entity do you want to have it. Okay, so these are my SLIs. And then where are my SLOs? If I go out to the Keptn folder, here I have my SLO basic and perf test. So we focus on basic. This is where I've specified that I want this particular SLI, the response time P95, to be evaluated against my objective. I have a pass criteria and I have a warning criteria. For throughput, same thing. I have a pass criteria. For error rate, for instance, I give this a higher weight because error rate might be more important for me. If error rate is, by default, every metric has a weight of 1, and then you can give it a different weight. Also, I have one metric here, one indicator that doesn't have any objective. This will then just be considered informational, and I'll still see the values. And the criteria, you can specify either hard-coded values, so you can do smaller or equals to a certain value, or you can also work with percentage numbers and plus minus. This actually means if you do a relative comparison, let's say plus 10%, it looks at the comparison time frame or the comparison run. In this case, I'm comparing with a single result with the last build that passed. And you can combine it too, right? You can say I have a hard-coded threshold of 600 and I should not be slower than 10% from the previous build. So it's it's very powerful. All right, so let's see. We deployed build number 1 again. If we go to the bridge, I'm going to the bridge and I can see my configuration change event here that I executed at 1950. That was 5 minutes ago. And I can already see that it was deployed in staging. Tests were executed. Now they took 2 minutes because we've uploaded tests. Now SLIs were retrieved because we uploaded SLIs. And this is really cool, we have an evaluation done here where in this version of the bridge that comes with the default installation, I can still switch between single evaluation and evaluation comparison. If you click on evaluation comparison, you actually see the heat map. And this is pretty sweet, excuse me, where you can see that every SLI has met its criteria. And you can click on it and you see on the bottom the different values. And I mean, right now we don't have a whole lot of historical data, but you could also click on chart. Yeah, there's not a whole lot to it. So we'll see more once we do more. Okay. So quick check again into the audience, into the attendees. Hopefully you're still, most of you are still with me and not fighting either console or xip.io or dashes or something else? Can I get a quick yes, I am there for those that actually made it that far? There, awesome. And hopefully you're not just saying this to make me feel good.
Andreas,
Yes.
I have a question. I'm a bit confused, and excuse me for my silly question, but
No.
what is the main difference between SLIs and SLOs?
Okay, that's not a silly question at all. So it's a separation of concern, and I have a blog post and a video I can show you, but that explains it in more detail. But the difference is SLIs are so-called indicators. So you basically specify what type of metrics are important for me. So this would be you are interested in throughput and error rate and response time. So you basically just define the source of the data. What is important? Service level indicators. And the SLO then says, okay, but what do I want to compare these metrics with once I have captured them? What are my objectives? The reason why we separate them, there's multiple reasons. One of them is you can maybe at some point change your query behind the scenes and still, maybe you change your query and you do this in the file where you actually define your metric queries, and you don't do it in a file that actually should be independent on how you get to these values. So this is why we have a separation of concerns. Also, in future versions of Keptn, you will be able to have multiple SLI providers. So let's say Dynatrace provides 5 metrics, and your SonarQube provides metrics, and your security testing tool provides metrics. So you define how do you get these metrics from the individual tools, and then you have your SLO, your objectives, where you basically specify, hey, all right, I have all these input data from different tools, and I want to make sure that I meet my overall objective of this is a secure system. So you can, for instance, say the metric that comes in from your security tool has the highest weight, and it has a very strict objective. And then you put additional objectives on other metrics from other tools. So it's a separation of what type of metrics am I interested in general, and then what are my objectives.
Okay. Now I got it. Thank you.
And then, but it's a good question, right? So what you should do in the Keptn YouTube channel, we did a webinar last week where I also talked about this. And let me just send that link because I explained SLIs and SLOs. And I'll put this into the chat here. Exactly. Good. All right, Roland, as Johannes has asked you, are you still not seeing hosts in Dynatrace? The Keptn looks okay. One thing that I noticed earlier, Roland, if you click on hosts, make sure you don't have click on all in the management zone filter, because the management zone we're creating here only applies to services and not to the underlying hosts. In case you not accidentally, but maybe on purpose clicked on the management zone, then you wouldn't see it because it's filtering it out. This is something we need to extend in our management zones. So just double check, Roland, that you just go back to all. That would be great. Good. All right. So next step, quality gates. Now the next step is we've just uploaded our tests and SLIs and SLOs for pre-prod. Now I also want to do it for production. So what do we need to do in order to enable it for production? Well, we need to upload our SLIs and SLOs for production. Normally, you may have different SLIs and SLOs. In my case, I'm just using the same file, but I'm uploading it here, as you can see in the Keptn add resource, to the stage prod. Earlier, we uploaded to staging. Now we upload it to prod. In a real life scenario, you would most likely have different SLIs and SLOs. Why? Well, let's say at least different SLOs, different objectives, because in the production environment, you have different load scenarios, which you might not be able to mimic in pre-prod, so you may have different throughput criteria. But the concept is the same, right? SLIs and SLOs. So now I'm uploading my SLI to production. I'm uploading my SLO to production. I'm on slide 41, by the way. And I am uploading my test scripts. So what will happen? Tests will actually execute also after production deployment, after we do blue-green. Yeah, so really just copy and paste. Just make sure that you're really in the right directory though, and that you always get resource has been uploaded. This tells me that, or this tells us that Keptn has received that file. Obviously, this can, once you integrate Keptn maybe in your CI process, and you've used Jenkins, for instance, to build a new artifact, and out of that source code repo, you have your SLIs and SLOs. Out of that Jenkins pipeline, you can say, I just uploaded my artifact. Now I'm uploading my SLIs, my SLOs, and my tests to Keptn, and then I tell Keptn, and now I want you to do the deployment. So this can obviously be fully automated thanks to either using the CLI or using the API directly. But I want to walk you through all of this today so that you see the individual steps involved. Okay, build 42. Let's run more builds. I have prepared 4 builds for you. So let's start with build number 2. And as it says here, let's validate the behavior, because build number 2 actually has a bad behavior, high failure rate. And if everything goes according to plan, build number 2 should be stopped by Keptn in stage, because it violates our SLO. Because in my SLO, I said error rate should not go beyond, I think, 2 or 3%. So let's see what's happening. All right, let's go back to the Keptn's bridge. I can already see that version build number 2 has been kicked off. The deployment has already finished. So now build number 2 is available in its beautiful orange background color. So the way you can differentiate the builds is through the number, but also through the really great or bad choice of background colors. I'm not that gifted with colors, but it does a good job in telling me what's deployed. All right, so build number 2 is deployed. Next thing that should happen, tests will execute. Remember, they take about 2 minutes, and hopefully now after 2 minutes, we will see a red light, meaning that build is no good. All right, and while we are waiting here, again, thanks for being so patient. I know this is not always easy to do it remote, but I think I learned. Thanks for the reminder earlier that the link that I gave you was not downloadable as a PPTX. So I will definitely make sure to make that available. Also, if you have done other workshops like this in the past, where you saw trainers use certain techniques to figure out how far along people are, let me know, right? Doing these types of workshops remote is also new to us. So always very happy to learn from others if you have any suggestions, because I'm pretty sure we'll do this more often in the future. All right, so let's see, 20:05, now it's 20:07. It should soon be done. Here we go, tests are finished. Now the SLI are retrieved. Oh yeah, here's also a word. That what happens internally. So we did the deployment, Keptn sent an event to the deployment. Then once the deployment finished, then JMeter kicked in, executed the tests. Once JMeter was finished, it basically said, hey, tests are finished. Then the Lighthouse service kicks in and says, well, I need to retrieve the data for the time frame between test start and test finish. It's about 2 minutes. There's a special implementation we put into place for retrieving metrics from a tool like Dynatrace, where, as you know, Dynatrace gets data from the one agents, and it's almost live, but there's still, you know, a couple of seconds delay. So what actually we do in retrieving the metrics, we retrieve it for the time frame, but then we retry retrieving the same time frame until we know this data set is actually stable. So the reason why we do this is if you have a fast deployment, then the tests are finished, and then you say, now give me these 2 minutes, and the Dynatrace doesn't have all the data yet fully processed, you would potentially get inconsistent results. That's why the Dynatrace, the Keptn SLI retrieval has a logic built in to really make sure it waits until it gets completely stable data. So that means until consecutive calls retrieve the same data set back. And this is now also why it may take a minute or so until we get the final results. Now, if you are using Keptn to say, enforce a quality gate on a time in the past, that's obviously instant because that data is stable right away. Good, and here we go. For me, I got the red light. Why did I get the red light? Because my error rate is high. And my response time too. Look at that. Error rate is now, error rate is definitely too high. Yeah. And also response time is extremely high. So all of these metrics are violating the SLO, and that's why I have retrieved a failure. Again, why is build number 2 bad? Remember in my examples, sample node, what I've built in here in build number 2 is a 50% failure rate of a particular endpoint that my testing tool is actually testing, that my JMeter script is testing. So that's great. Now I want to do, not sure if you're already done, but now I wanted to build number 3. And while this runs, we'll do something else because it's not that exciting to wait for builds all the time. But I am kicking off build number 3 now because build number 3 should be good again and should go all the way through. So I want to see how this works all the way to the end with the quality gates. All right. So build number 3, as you can see, has kicked off. Now, while, again, this takes, as we saw, in total 4 or 5 minutes. I want to quickly jump ahead and actually update the bridge. This bridge here is awesome, but there's a new version of it already available with some smaller adjustments. And there will be more advances coming in the UI over the next couple of weeks and months. But one thing that I have prepared for you is if you go to the slides and if you scroll down to the bonus topics, there's one bonus topic on slide 48. This is how we can It's a special build I received today. As you can see, it's from the 4th of May. Actually, May the 4th be with you. It's a Star Wars bridge. I wonder if there's an Easter egg in there. But if we go to my console, then I can again do what I copied over. It's really just replacing the image for that container. So instead of using that bridge, that image that came with the default installation of Keptn, I'm just updating that image to that particular build. And if you do so, and then if you refresh the bridge, now see here, now it says staging 1 service, prod 1 service. I can, if I refresh, here we go. Now we already, this is a small change. You see the latest version that is currently deployed in this particular stage. So in staging, we have version 3. In production, we have version 1. These are also smart links, so you can click on it, and then it automatically scrolls to that particular part of the process flow, the workflow on where this build was deployed. If we do the same thing for build number 3, right, this is here right now, it's in deployment finished. You can click on that link, just see build number 3 is deployed right now, yellow background. Also, what's nice, if I go to, if you see it here, also these tags, they're also smart links. So for my build number 2 earlier that failed, I can click on it and it automatically scrolls to that deployment. I also get the heat map automatically. By the way, now we can also click between heat map and charts because we now actually have values, at least 2 for 2 builds. And on the bottom of this chart, you can see all these different metrics, so you can all put them in, right? You can click on them. If you say, I want to see how error rate has evolved. And it went up like crazy. And I think it's actually probably not error rate. It's probably failed requests. I probably have misnamed that. It's not a rate. Rate for me would be percentage, but I guess I made a mistake in defining that query. But anyway, it worked as expected because it's higher than what I wanted to have. Okay, so then there's some couple other cool things in here. All right, another thing I want to show you while the build is still running, right? Build number 3 is still running. I want to quickly jump over to Dynatrace. Hopefully for those of you where you got it to work. There's a couple of things. If you click on dashboards, there should be dashboards being created for you, right? There's a simple node project at Keptn. That's the one that was created. And it should show the number in staging and in prod, what's been deployed. I think right now there's no filter on it, so we may want to then filter it on using the management zone Keptn simple node project. Here we go. Now I don't have hosts. This is something we need to fix on our end. The management zones need to also include hosts. That's not okay. We should do that. Also, last 7 days doesn't make sense for me because I've deployed this project multiple times. So right now, if I look at the last 2 hours, I have a lot of these metrics here, right? I have staging, production, direct links to the service. I see the key metric throughput, failure rate, response time. I also have links to the actual service itself, like where it's deployed. I also have a link to the Keptn's bridge. That's awesome. But what I want to show you, if you are here and if you find your service, let's say the one that we have deployed in staging, and if you go to that, then what I'm expecting to see on the bottom right, if you scroll down, are all these events. Remember I told you that one of the things that the Keptn Dynatrace integration also does is send events to the monitoring tool. So when is a deployment happening? When to test start? When do they stop? What's the quality result? So I have the full history also in my monitoring tool in Dynatrace in this case. So when was build number 2 deployed? 2005. And then all the metrics, link back to the bridge, a link to the deployment URL. Again, where was this deployed to? Test strategy, and so on and so forth. then the tests, which tests were, when were they started, when were they stopped, and what was the quality gate result. Quality gate was enforced on build number 2. Remember, we only had 30 of 100 points, which is why it was not promoted, it failed. Number of evaluated SLIs 5, score, so we have everything here. Oh, and especially with the link back. Also evaluation time frame, the actual time frame that was used. So we put a lot of context data over there. Cool. So let's see. Build number 3 for me has been gone through the quality gate in staging. Everything is green again. And it's currently being deployed in prod. And then the tests are also executed in prod and so on and so forth. Okay. So quick check again. How are we doing? Who can I, Roland, I know you've been struggling a little bit with the Dynatrace monitoring. Have you, do you see data in Dynatrace? Any type of data? Or are you still blocked? Good, okay, Jose is good. That's good. Okay, Roland, need some problems with the tokens. All right. I happened to me in the past as well, where I flipped the tokens. I had the API token flipped with the pass token. So maybe you want to try this again and then do the create the secret again, so that's updated, and then do that Keptn configure monitoring again. That would be important. Good. Anybody else? So Jose is good, I assume. Oh yeah, Jose is asking, sharing my experience with my friends, Jose, about the practice. Yeah, go. Very good. All is okay, perfect. Good. Then I have, as you know, right, there is, we've deployed build number 3. You can probably take an educated guess that next one is build number 4. Before we deploy build number 4, because actually we have build number 3 at least still running, I want to walk through one more scenario and then deploy build number 4, because I want to extend the quality gates with additional SLIs and SLOs. So right now we have the basic SLI with 5 metrics. Good, but boring. Boring in a way that these are just basic metrics. What I want to extend my SLIs with metrics that are specific to individual test cases, to a particular endpoint of a URL. So what I've prepared for you is a second set of SLIs and SLOs. So on slide 45, we're now uploading the SLI, it's called perf test as the new SLI into staging. So let's take this, let's put it over, let's paste it in. There we go. So that's the new SLI. It has more metrics, and what these metrics are, I'll tell you in a second. Then we do the same thing with the SLO. Why do we also have to update the SLO? Well, because in the end, the SLO really defines what metrics are important. What do people really, what is part of the objective? If I just add SLI, new metrics definition, but it's never needed an SLO, it doesn't do anything. So you have to specify where the metric comes from, and you have to specify what the objectives are. Now, the SLI that I've just uploaded includes a couple of new metrics that are using a new feature in Dynatrace that is called calculated service metrics, where in Dynatrace I can say, I want to get response time, number of database calls, CPU time, wait time, but I want to have it split by a particular piece of the URL, by a particular context, piece of context data. And my context data is my JMeter script is, when it executes tests, it is adding context data in terms of, this is the test step name, homepage, invoke, echo, version, and all that. This context data is captured by Dynatrace. So now Dynatrace can give us metrics split by for instance, the test name or the test step name. Now we need to configure these metrics. We could do it through the UI in Dynatrace, but that's obviously boring. This is not what we want. We want to automate it. So what I've created a little bash script that you find in the examples simple node service Dynatrace folder. So that means we have to go out one folder and then Dynatrace. In this folder, you see a couple of scripts that I wrote where I played around with automating metrics creation in Dynatrace. But the one that I want to call it's called create test step calculated metric.sh, and it takes up to 3 parameters. And you want to take the one obviously that I've posted in there, so hit enter. What it does, it creates these metrics. Hit enter again when it says, are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. It creates these metrics, and these parameters basically specify for which particular services should these metrics be created. So contextless and Keptn project, it basically says only for tags that only for services that have the tag Keptn project on it. You have to have a filter. So this is the way this works, because otherwise if you create a metric like this, where you say, I want to have response time split by URL, and you have 10,000s of microservices in your environment, then this would potentially end up in a lot of metrics that you may not even want. In this case, you can control it and you can say, I want to create these metrics only for services where I have a particular tag on it. Now my script is very simple. It creates these rules with a single rule, with a single condition, but you can obviously create multiple conditions. But this is what I've done. And what I want to do now is, let's see what else do I need to do here? Next thing is just run the build. I don't want to run build number 1 again. I want to run build number 4, right? So I'm taking build number 4 because I haven't done that yet in order to save time. Let me first double check if build number 3 went all the way through. Yes, 3 went through, but actually failed in production. That's interesting. Yeah, throughput. Yeah, it didn't hit my throughput mark. And thanks, Julio. I'll look into this in a second. What do you have? Let me just run build number 4 quickly. And hopefully now we get to see more metrics. Now you have message pattern, unknown request, TSM parameter location. Julio, did you do a Keptn configure monitoring earlier? So what this error tells me is the rule doesn't work. Yes, you did. And you did a deployment. Did you do a deployment of a build where tests were executed? Okay, so here's what the error says. And actually, let me show you this rule definition, because this is important. Then we can do some troubleshooting. If I go to my Dynatrace environment, what this script really did, it created these calculated service metrics. You can find them under settings, under server-side monitoring, calculated service metrics. Now I have a lot of those because I've played around and I'm doing other things as well. But yours that failed was, let's assume, test step response time, right? So the way these calculated service metrics work is you have to give them a metric name. You have to give them a metric source, and this is where the conditions come in. So with condition, I basically said, or my script said, only create or only calculate these metrics for services that have the Keptn tag on it or the Keptn project tag, and also only those where Dynatrace was able to capture the TSN, this is the test step name, from the testing tool. Now your error message says Dynatrace is not aware of TSN. TSN is also a rule that was created in the beginning when we were configuring the Dynatrace Keptn integration. So what you can, Julio, if you can do one thing, if you, in settings right above, it says request attributes. can you double check if in here you actually have LTN, TSN, and LSN? So these are request attributes that request attribute rules that should have been created. Now what these do is when JMeter sends requests and it sends the test name as part of an HTTP header, it is taking that request attribute, or it's parsing that context data and is attaching it to our PureBev data as a so-called request attribute. Now, if this is not there, and you said you have done the Keptn configure monitoring Dynatrace in the beginning, then the only thing that I could assume what you did wrong is that the token, you're right, I haven't those attributes. Okay, so two options. Either Keptn configure monitoring Dynatrace for whatever reason failed. There was some issue with, let's say, network connection time, or I don't know, whatever. Or more likely is you have made a mistake with the API tokens. So if you click on integration, if you do Dynatrace API, and if you look at your token again that you created earlier, in my case it was the Keptn workshop meeting, then you need to make sure that all of these are turned on. And I think it's the right configuration and the capture request data that has to be turned on. So if you can double check if your API token that you used actually has these switches turned on, and if one of those was missing, then this is most likely the reason for it. Okay, and so if please double check. So it's on the integration, Dynatrace. Thanks, I'm checking all. Okay, perfect. It should have also been in the log output probably somewhere with Keptn configure monitoring, if I'm not mistaken. If you do the change, if you find out that you have not turned on a certain permission, you can change it, save it, and then do another, you can do a, where is it? You can do a Keptn configure monitoring Dynatrace again. That should do the trick. Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. And let me double check. If I do project equals simple node project. Yep. No, it should create it up here somewhere. Good. Let's see. I kicked off build number 4. Build number 4 is here. Evaluation done. Here we go. Now for me, I see now the list of new metrics. So why is this? So what are these metrics again? Remember my test is executing 4 different test cases, and I just said I want to have the response time of my invoke test case, the response time of echo, the response time of version, the response time of homepage. This response time up here is for the whole service, combining and aggregating all the requests, but now I want to have it spit out. Also, the number of service calls. So in Dynatrace, I can say I want to have a metric of a service that is under test, and the metric should be the number of backend service calls it makes. It could also be database calls. So now I get these metrics fully automatically evaluated with every time I run a build. If you want to see it in Dynatrace, then 2 options actually, right? You can put them on a chart, create custom chart, and we just Let's do all. Test step. For me, test step response time. All right, and here are my individual response times, and then I want to have it split by test step. So here we go. Now I get, there's not a whole lot of traffic obviously on here, but let's do the last 30 minutes maybe. There we go. But then these are the metrics, the individual ones for echo, invoke, homepage version. Okay. And this is why these metrics are so powerful. And not only that we have them available to dashboard, but we can also configure them as part of our SLIs and SLOs. So if I go back to my Dynatrace, not this one, simple note, Keptn, Dynatrace. Let's look at this SLI, the perf test. All right, this is now my new SLI we uploaded. And these ones now, RT test invoke, so response time from my test case with the name invoke. The metric selector says, I want to have this calculated service metric, but I only want to have it for the test step with the name invoke. So filter, where you can do a dimensional filter, and then the entity is the same as before. Exactly. And now I also see my mistake with the error rate. Remember earlier when I said this is not a rate because I used errors total count. And I guess we need to figure out the, not the errors total, but a real error rate metric. That was my mistake when I prepared this. Good. All right. I think we actually made it through pretty much everything because we did the extend quality gates with additional metrics. We ran build number 4 instead of build number 1 again, but all the SLIs are here. The bonus topic was the bridge. We updated the bridge. Then tutorials. There's a lot of great tutorials out there under the tutorials.keptn.sh. And I can also very much encourage you to look at helping us extend Keptn. So first of all, you can extend Keptn with existing services that are already out there. There's, for instance, a Keptn report service. There's a generic executor, a Jenkins service. There's a GitLab tutorial. There is there's a Bitbucket tutorial. There's a lot of stuff out there. Or you can build your own service. So if you want to integrate a certain tool with Keptn, you can just build your own service. There's also guidelines on how to contribute. You can find all this information here. All right. So now, as we are only, let's say, a handful of people, it would be great, you know, feel free to turn on your, feel free to turn on the audio and also video if you want to. That's obviously up to you. But I would like to quickly do a round and see, A, how far did you get? B, where did you potentially get lost so I can actually bake this into the next iteration of this so we don't lose people. Also, the third thing I would like to know is, have you done these types of remote workshops in the past? And what have others done better in the way of preparation, making sure that people are in sync? So feel free to just turn on your audio and video. Hitendra, do you want to say something?
Yeah, Andy. So I'm through this. The last step failed me too. The one, where you create the calculated service metrics.
Okay.
So for some reason, I'm getting the same error as Julio.
And do you see the request attributes being created?
No. I checked my API too, and I have all the permissions on the token.
Okay.
So I'm not sure. I'll try maybe with a cleaner setup. I had some tags and few things from past. I don't know if that messes up this, but
Yeah, let me just do feedback here. So that means the request attributes were not created. Calculated service metrics failed to create because of missing request attributes. Okay.
Yep.
Anything else from your side? Anything that you've maybe seen in other remote workshops?
I guess this was really good. I mean, I was able to follow your instructions and it's pretty good. Yeah.
Were you able to download the PowerPoint, or did you have to do the PDF export?
No, I could download it.
Okay.
I was able to download. Yeah.
Okay. Good. I see Julio, you have turned on the audio.
Yeah. Well, in my case, I double checked. The credentials were okay. I checked also the 6 requirements in the API token.
Mm-hmm.
So I have them. I rerun the commands, and besides all of that, I don't have the request attributes created. And well, you see the SRE metrics are not created due to that.
Mm-hmm.
And besides that, well, in my case, I have OSX, so I had to download the PDF with the slides,
Yeah.
and that's a minor issue when you select text from the PDF.
Mm-hmm.
Some characters are not rightly or directly copied. You know, the white spaces and the dashes. So there is an issue on that.
Yeah. And you think that the reason is because you're running on Mac OS?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I'm not fully sure, but there is no, OS X as a major operating system used by developers. So
yeah,
maybe
no,
you can
but I'm just wondering if you can normally open a PowerPoint though, right? It's a PowerPoint slide. So.
Oh yeah, maybe I could, but in my case, I have no PowerPoint installed in this MacBook.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, that's good to know. Slide going with issues with command line. Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Maybe you could have a gist or some page inside your GitHub with all these commands.
Yeah. So the goal is to put it over here, right? So the goal is to put it here, and then
that's better.
Yeah, that's what we'll do. But I wanted to run this first once to collect the feedback and then convert it over because I knew there's definitely things we can improve. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but besides that, I could follow all the tutorial, and it works. I'm gladly to have been able to participate on this.
Perfect. Were you able to join the Slack channel?
Yes.
Perfect.
Oh. Yeah. Well, I will check it because I need to confirm my email.
Mm-hmm. So it would be great if you can, right? Because the more people that join the Slack channel, the easier it is for us to stay in touch, and that's great. Cool. I also saw that Carlos and John had to leave. Thanks, Carlos, for the nice words. All the best in the next meeting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Perfect. Let's see, Roland.
So first of all, thanks a lot. It was very good. I had some problems with the metrics, but I think there was a token thing. So it was a bit too fast then.
Do you know what was the token problem? Did you mix the pass and the API token, or was it something?
Yes, I think. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I think so. But I didn't. I didn't mention that the API token and the pass token are on two different
pages.
Pages.
Yeah.
So that was a problem.
Yeah, I mean,
But
there's some good news, I think, coming that these tokens, I think in the near future will be consolidated anyway to just one, you just create a token and then one of the tokens maybe has the pass capability. So right now it's strange that we even have two sets of configuration. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
was very good, and also the tutorial maybe a bit slower,
Mm-hmm.
because I had copy paste with Cloud Shell problems too, and
Okay.
so
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I mean that's something.
if
I
you
think
have
that copy paste will go away with once we have it in HTML. That will help. But you're right. Obviously, when you then have to type all the time, then it's impossible to follow.
yes.
Mhm.
And so if there is no, it was very good.
Cool. Thank you. Have you done remote webinars like this or hands-on like this before?
Yes, I have done some, and I have give some, and it's very complicated.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a special skill.
Okay.
But it was very good.
Okay. Thank you. But if
Liked it very much.
anything comes to mind on how to especially understand as a trainer where everybody is, I'm not sure. Maybe there's some other tool like raising your hands, or I don't know. If anything comes to mind.
Yes, I think in Zoom there should be a raising. No, there was another tool.
Yeah, I think you can do a go faster, go slower, yes or no. You have question options.
No, so there is a raise hand feature.
Oh yeah, that's
I
right.
just raised. Yeah.
Yeah, I see it. Oh yeah, that's good. Where do you have this hand? I don't see it in my.
I don't have it too, but I have the Linux client, so maybe it's not there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I am connected from my phone, so maybe it's on the phone.
Oh yeah,
on the app.
cool.
Yeah, Andreas, I just wanted to ask that I have multiple environments in Dynatrace. So all the environments have multiple tokens. So how will we manage that in Keptn?
Yeah.
So we have to configure again.
So the new Dynatrace service that we used today, Dynatrace service. Oops, that was obviously the wrong one. There's a new capability. We extended it where you can actually have multiple tokens. So let me, where was this released into? The 6.9. And let's see if that actually has the documentation. Where is it? Exactly, here it is. Send events to different Dynatrace environments. So you can upload a so-called dynatrace.conf.yaml in the Dynatrace folder where you can.
Yeah, understood.
Yeah, this is where you can specify.
I will follow.
Yeah, I'll send you the link to. Can you remind me again? Are you on the Slack channel?
Yes, I am. Agrim, AGRI. I am on the Slack. Yeah.
Perfect. Cool. Hey, yeah, I think any other feedback? Anything else that?
No, it was great. It was actually very much interactive, so you could follow.
Good. That's great. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that this was supposed to be for Stockholm, but then I don't think if anybody who actually is from Stockholm here. It seems we're all over the place.
Yeah, I'm from India, so I guess Jitendra was from India as well.
Yeah. So who is
Hi,
anybody?
Andreas.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Thank you for the time and for this well-prepared webinar. That's awesome and shows the power of Keptn with Dynatrace. Very glad to see that magic's happening right now, as was promised in the past.
Yeah, that's good.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for the feedback. And actually, the feedback goes to you know, the team that has been doing all the hard work behind the scenes. Johannes is still there, so I think the kudos goes to them. And it's amazing what's possible with automation, right? And there's still a lot of way to go, and but we're getting there. Cool. All right. Is there anybody else that wants to say something? I think we had pretty much everyone, right? Okay. In that respect, thank you so much. Have a good evening or a good rest of the day. Stay healthy. And we will do this probably again. We don't, I guess, need a meetup page for that. We can also organize these types of workshops just on a regular basis. We'll be very happy to do that. And we'll post it on Slack and also Twitter and whatever else we'll come up with.
Thank you, Andreas.
Thank you.
See you then.
Thanks a lot. Have a nice
Bye.
evening.
Tschüss.
Bye.
Ciao.